So conflict view is all about what? Who's getting gypped? Who's getting taken advantage of? There's conflict between owners and workers. There's conflict between rich and poor. Conflict is good, not bad. Conflict points out the problems in the system that need to be fixed. With me so far? Okay. This is Marx's theory. Conflict says there are conflict between those in power and those without power. In fact, he says it's the people who control the means of production and distribution who have the power, the bosses, the owners of the company. And the people without the power then are the workers. You with me so far? Now, he says there's class consciousness and false consciousness. Now, by that he means false consciousness, you don't truly understand your position in the social class structure. That's upper class, middle class, lower class. Now, he says the dominant ideology by the group in power in America tells you that you're poor because there's something wrong with you. Your strategy's bad, you're not as smart as, you didn't work as hard, you didn't do as much. If you had effort, then you'll be successful no matter what. He says that's not true. He says if you think you're poor because there's something wrong with you, you have false consciousness. But he says if you get the bigger view of the world and you look at everybody in your class, then you'll see that everybody in your class, lower class, is poor. And they're poor because the system of capitalism creates rich and poor. There's winners and losers when you put people in competition. It's the Easter egg hunt, is the way I like to think about it. If you're 7 and you've been through it before, and you're fast, and you're smart, and you take off and you run out there, you come back with 70 eggs. You can't carry them all. You got so many. You got them in your shirt. I've seen these church Easter egg hunts, and kids come back right with their whole shirt filled with eggs. And one little 3-year-old who's never been there before is watching and crying typically, and she has no eggs. So some of the church people say, hey, why don't we take some of your eggs and give them to poor Susie because she's crying and she doesn't have any eggs. Why don't we share? And they go, okay, so they give her 3 eggs. Now she's happy. And that's what Marx says happens. The people in power with all the eggs, with all the money, when you complain, they give you just a little bit of money, but not enough to be competitive with them. So you start your own business, and they keep you dependent on the job, and then they take advantage of you because they get to make the rules. This is the owners of Walmart versus the workers at Walmart. This is a group of people without health insurance who are working for minimum wage that you cannot live on. Now, alienation is that feeling of separation from the worker from their own work product. So Marx says when we were out on the farm and we planted our crops and we grew our own crops and we put that food on the table, we had pride in our work product. We owned it. And then industrialization comes along and people move to the city and they begin to exchange their labor for wages. Now, when that happens, you no longer own your own work products. That makes sense to you? Therefore, the person that owns the product can sell it and keep most of the money. They're going to get rich, and you're not if you're working for them. You got to work for yourself, according to him. And workers who are closer to their own work product are happier. We'll look later on at the sociology of work and check that out. See if there's some truth to that. Now, when you think of Marx, think of feudal time. Now, I don't give you too much Marx. I'm going to quit lecturing on him in just a minute. Because believe me, when my wife can't sleep at night, she says, Garrett, would you give me a Marx lecture? And I do, and she falls asleep right off. Just like you guys will if I continue too much longer. Feudal times, kings and queens, rich and poor, two classes, upper class, lower class, peasants, serfs, royalty. That's Marx's view of the world. He predicts that the poor will get mad at the rich and they will overthrow them in a revolution and set up a worker state. The destruction of capitalism.